I used to be the kind of woman who could hit a tin can at 200 yards and feel nothing special about it. That was just Tuesday. That was also 20 years ago, and the woman who could do that had a father who smelled like WD-40 and patience, a hill behind the house, and absolutely nothing to lose. I am not that woman anymore. I am a woman who coordinates vehicle maintenance schedules for a veterans nonprofit in Henderson, Nevada, drinks her coffee from the same crack mug every morning because buying a new one requires a decision, and tells people she is fine so often and so automatically that the word has essentially stopped meaning anything. Fine is just the sound I make when someone asks. I was fine on the Tuesday in March when Dale Pruitt dropped the entry form on my desk. I had been fine for approximately 10 years. The nonprofit is called Forward March. Nobody loves the name, but the founder's wife came up with it after his third surgery and nobody was going to argue with her, and it operates out of a converted warehouse on the east side of Henderson that smells like industrial carpet cleaner and burnt coffee no matter what time of day you arrive. We run transportation services for veterans who can't drive themselves to appointments. We collect and redistribute equipment donations. We do job placement support, benefits navigation, and 3 times a year we run a fundraising event that is equal parts community outreach and organized chaos. I have been a logistics coordinator there for 6 years. Before that I was a logistics specialist in the Army for 8. Before that I was a girl in Harlan County, Kentucky, who could shoot. I keep those 3 facts in a very specific order in my mind and do not allow them to touch each other. Dale Pruitt is a retired Marine who runs the operations side of Forward March with the energy of a man who has been told to relax by doctors and has chosen not to. He is 61, built like a filing cabinet, and communicates primarily through a series of looks that range from "this is acceptable" to "I am not angry, just deeply tired of this." He has never once asked me how I'm doing, which is the reason I've stayed 6 years. We understand each other. The entry form appeared on my desk on a Tuesday at 11:14 in the morning. I know the time because I had just updated the maintenance log for Vehicle 7, which had been flagged for a brake inspection, and I noted the time in the log, and when I looked up the form was there. Dale was already gone. The form was for the Forward March Invitational Long-Range Precision Shooting Competition, which we host every April at a private range outside Tonopah. It is our biggest fundraising event. Veterans, active duty, civilians, sponsors. 3 days. Long-range targets, progressive distances, timed rounds. I had coordinated the logistics for it 3 years running. Transportation, lodging, equipment manifests, volunteer assignments. I had never once considered entering. At the bottom, in Dale's handwriting, compressed, vertical, like his letters were standing at attention, it said, Renee. Staff discount. Just a thought. I looked at the form for longer than made sense. It was a standard entry form. Name, category, emergency contact, liability waiver. The kind of document I process 40 of a week without reading a single word. I know what forms look like. This one did not require this much of my attention. I set it to the side. Pulled up the brake inspection schedule. Got back to work. At lunch I went to the break room to eat the sandwich I had packed, which was turkey on wheat, which is what I pack because it requires no thought, and found 3 of our volunteer coordinators, Gina, Pat, and a newer guy named Theo who I'd on board in January, already at the table. Gina looked up when I came in. Dale put you in for the shoot? He left a form on my desk. You gonna do it? Pat asked. Pat is a Vietnam-era vet who has been volunteering with us since before I arrived and knows everything about everyone and tells you nothing useful about any of it. He was eating soup from a thermos the size of a small child. I run the logistics for it. That's not what he asked, Theo said. I sat down. Opened my sandwich. I know what I'm doing. You know how to shoot? Theo asked. He was 26 and genuinely curious, which I had not yet decided to hold against him. I grew up in Kentucky. That's not, yes it is, Pat said, without looking up from his thermos. Gina smiled. Not unkindly. It'd be good for people to see you out there. You're always behind the table. I like the table. I know you do, honey. I ate my sandwich. The conversation moved on. I did not say anything else. But, on the way back to my desk, I thought about the form. I thought about it in a specific, uninvited way, not the way you think about a scheduling decision, but the way you think about something you have already decided and are waiting for your brain to catch up to. I kept walking. Sat down. Pulled up the break inspection. The form was still to the side of my keyboard. I want to tell you what the 10 years looked like, so you understand what kind of fine I was. I came back from my deployment in 2014 and, within 5 months, I was different in ways I didn't have words for and didn't look for words for. Kevin, my husband, who had waited for me, who had done everything right, who deserved credit for things I am still not able to fully inventory, Kevin said I was somewhere else. He said it the way people say things they have been rehearsing for a while. Careful. Even. I told him I was fine. He said he knew I thought so. We did couples counseling for 4 months and I was excellent at it. I answered every question clearly and completely, and the therapist said I was making real progress, and I believed her because I am good at tasks. In February of 2015, I moved into the second bedroom. In June of 2015, I filed the papers. We had a daughter who was 2 years old, and I am going to tell you that the hardest thing was not the marriage ending. The marriage ending was, if I am being honest, a relief the way turning off a light in a room you've already left is a relief. The hardest thing was watching Maddie reach for Kevin's hand one morning in the kitchen while we were still pretending nothing was happening, that small automatic reach of a 2-year-old toward the nearest safe person, and knowing she was right to reach. For him and not for me. That is the only time I am going to mention that. I moved to Henderson. I got the job. I got an apartment with a dishwasher, which felt like evidence of progress. I got a routine that required no meaningful decisions and, therefore, produced no meaningful failures. Maddie is with me half the time and, with Kevin the other half, and she is 11 now and smart and funny and she has his laugh and she has eyes that see things, and when she looks at me for too long I find reasons to look somewhere else. Fine is not the same as good. I know that. I have always known that. I just decided, at some point during that February in 2015, that good was a project I didn't have the bandwidth for. Fine would hold. Fine would do the job. Fine runs on a lot less fuel. At 4:47 in the afternoon, I picked up the pen that was sitting next to the form. It was a Bic, white barrel, blue cap. Somebody had chewed the cap into a landscape. Not my pen. I don't chew pens. I have a cup of pens on my desk and I take care of them. I held this wrecked little pen and I looked at the entry form. I am a logistics coordinator. I do not do the events. I run the events. These are completely different things and the distinction has served me well. I thought about the range outside Tonopah. The dry air. The specific quality of desert quiet that is not silence so much as the absence of anything soft. I thought about my father's truck, and the hill, and the cans, and Tuesday. I filled out the form. Name, category open/civilian emergency contact, my sister Bev in Lexington, who would be annoyed to be listed and would not ask why. Signed the liability waiver. Did not read it first, which I never do, which is something a person who processes 40 forms a week is allowed. I walked to Dale's office. He was on the phone. I put the form on his desk and walked back to mine. He didn't say anything that afternoon. I didn't expect him to. Some decisions you make before you know you've made them. I know that now. Then, I thought I was just returning a piece of paper. That's the thing about fine, it makes everything feel administrative. It makes every door look like a form to file and not a thing you are walking through. I filed the form. I walked through the door. I didn't know the difference yet. 3 blank lines between chapters in final file, that's chapter 1, approximately 1,550 words. Proceeding to chapter 2 immediately. The range outside Tonopah smells like gun oil and dry grass, and when I got out of the rental car I stood in the parking lot for a moment with my hand on the door and thought very seriously about getting back in. I didn't. I closed the door. I got my bag. But I want you to know the moment happened. The range is called High Desert Precision and it is exactly what the name tells you: flat, scrubbed, enormous, the kind of space that makes you aware of your own dimensions. The mountains in the distance are the color of old bone. The sky is a blue that doesn't occur east of the Rockies. The morning I arrived, April 14th, there were 43 registered competitors, a row of white pop-up canopies, and more rifle cases than I have seen in one place since I was in country. I am a logistics coordinator. I knew the competitor count. I had processed the registrations. Knowing a thing and standing inside it are not the same thing, and I stood in the parking lot and learned that again. Registration was in the main canopy. I found my packet, name badge, schedule, range safety briefing card, competitor number, which was 31, and then I stood to the side and read the safety briefing card twice, which I did not need to do because I wrote the safety briefing card, but it was something to do with my hands. You're the one from Forward March. I looked up. The man talking was maybe 30, wearing a sun shirt and a competition cap, holding 2 rifle cases with the ease of someone for whom that is a neutral act. He had a lanyard with a volunteer badge. I'm one of the ones from Forward March, I said. There are several of us. You're the logistics one. Yes. He held out one of the rifle cases, not to give it to me, just indicating it. We pulled the equipment for the open civilian category last night. Yours is tagged competitor 31. I know what my number is. He smiled. Not a bad smile. Just a smile that knew something I didn't yet. Okay. Equipment table's over there when you're ready. He walked off. I looked at the equipment table. There was a woman at the table, mid-50s, efficient, who found my case without being asked and set it on the table in front of me and popped the latches with the practiced indifference of someone who has done this 1,000 times. Inside, nested in foam, was a precision bolt-action rifle that cost more than 2 months of my rent. I looked at it for a long beat. You need anything? The woman asked. No, I said. Thank you. She moved on. I stood there. My hands moved before I thought about it. Left hand on the stock, right to the action, the same check I had run on weapons since I was 19 years old: safety, condition, seat. The bolt. The trigger guard. I tilted it, checked the bore out of pure reflex, seated the stock against my shoulder to check the length of pull. It fit. I had not held a rifle in 11 years and my hands did not know they were supposed to forget. I put it back in the case. Closed the latches. Stood there with my hands at my sides. Fine, I told myself. My assigned spotter was Cal Merritt. He was waiting at lane 12 when I got there, 28, maybe 29, the build of someone who runs long distances for reasons other than health, a face that defaulted to neutral the way a well-zeroed scope defaults to center. He introduced himself, told me his background: 4 years Marine Scout Sniper, 2 deployments, 3 years instructing in the flat, sequential way of someone who considers this the relevant data and nothing else. What's your background? He asked. Army. Logistics. He nodded once. I grew up shooting, I said. I don't know why I added that. Rural Kentucky. Deer season. Informal stuff. How long since you've been behind a rifle? I told him. He didn't react. He just said, all right, and handed me a data book, a small green notebook for recording environmental variables, ballistic data, shot results, and started walking me through the lane setup. He did not condescend. I noted this. In my experience, men who are very good at a physical skill tend to handle women who might also be good at that skill in one of 2 ways: they either over-explain, which is condescension wrapped in patience, or they under-explain, which is a test. Cal did neither. He explained exactly what was needed and stopped when it was delivered. It was the most efficient communication I had received in longer than I could locate. I wrote down the weather data he gave me. Temperature, humidity, wind speed, and direction. I converted the units in my head before writing, a habit from supply manifests that apparently transfers. Cal watched me do this and didn't comment. Ready for a cold shot? He asked. Sure. The target at 1,800 meters is the size of a dinner plate. I knew this from the competitor packet. I had formatted the competitor packet. The information did not prepare me for lying in the prone position, cheek welded to the stock, looking through the scope at a smear of steel on the face of a desert hillside that my brain did not want to accept as a legitimate target. The world through a precision scope is a different world. Everything peripheral goes. There is only the reticle and the target and the distance between them, which is not a distance you can feel but a distance you have to solve, and solving it requires your breathing and your heartbeat and the wind to all agree with each other for approximately 1 second. I had forgotten that. Not the mechanics, the sensation. The narrowing. I breathed. Cal was in my ear, wind call, 3 o'clock, 4 miles per hour, light hold right. I dialed. Breathed again. Let my heart pass. The trigger broke. The round went down range. Through the scope I watched the target react. Hit. Cal said nothing for a moment. I heard him shift beside me. Then, the binoculars came down. Good, he said. I ejected the case. My hands were shaking. Not badly, a fine tremor, the kind that's under the skin. I pressed my palms flat against the mat and waited for it to pass. Cal made a note in his own data book. He didn't look at my hands. I went through 2 more rounds in the practice session. Hit both. I packed up my data book. Stripped the gloves off, they were thin shooting gloves, half finger, and I didn't actually need them at this temperature. I had put them on because suiting up properly was something to do with myself, and then pulled them back on. Took them off again. Folded them. Put them in my jacket pocket. Took them out. You always do that with your gloves? Cal asked. No, I said. He nodded and didn't ask again. We walked back to the staging area. Around us, other competitors were comparing data, talking through the session, doing the social thing that competition does. I heard my name mentioned once, not unkindly, in a way that suggested I had surprised someone. I did not look to find out who. The body remembers what the mind has spent a decade trying to forget. I know that sounds like a thing someone stitches on a pillow. But, I am telling you, I stood at that staging table and my hands were still moving through the check sequence in my head, the one I hadn't run in 11 years, and somewhere behind my sternum something was pressing outward the way a bruise does when you've forgotten it's there and, then, something touches it. I put the gloves in my pocket. Fine, I thought. I was already starting to lose confidence in that word. Chapter 2, approximately 1,380 words. Proceeding to Chapter 3 immediately. I ate a gas station sandwich in my motel room and watched the Weather Channel for an hour and a half and did not think about Kevin at all. The motel was a Best Western 12 miles from the range, and my room had a heater that made a sound like someone crumpling paper slowly and a bedspread the color of a bruise. I had the Weather Channel on because silence in unfamiliar rooms is something I manage. I had the volume low enough to be meaningless. The weather in question was for somewhere I wasn't, the Midwest, a front moving through, animated green blobs crossing illustrated states, and I watched it with the attention I normally give to things that require no response from me. The sandwich was turkey. I'd grabbed it at a Chevron on the way from the range. It tasted like the wrapper. I did not think about Kevin. I thought about the heater. I thought about whether I had locked the rental car. I thought about the practice session data and ran a few numbers in my head about the next day's distances, estimating, comparing against the ballistic tables I'd reviewed on the flight over, the kind of mental activity that keeps the engine running without going anywhere. At 11:40 I gave up on sleeping and went outside. The motel had an exterior corridor, and I sat on the curb at the edge of the parking lot because there were no chairs and the concrete was something solid to put my weight against. The night was cold the way Nevada cold is, cold, dry and immediate, like the dark itself has low humidity. The parking lot lights were the orange sodium kind that make everything look like evidence. I don't know how long I'd been out there when Cal's door opened. He was 2 rooms down, same row, and he came out in a jacket, hands in pockets, looked at me sitting on the curb, and sat down about 4 feet away. He didn't ask why I was out there. I didn't explain. Across the parking lot there was a vending machine against the far wall. The Pepsi kind, lit up, humming. It was the only light on that side of the lot. I watched it the way you watch a thing when you are not watching anything. The way the hum was just barely audible. The little lit-up panel of choices visible from 40 yards. We sat there for a while. Cal said, "How'd you feel about today?" I hit the targets. That's not what I asked. I looked at the vending machine. The hum was so even it was almost not a sound. Almost just a frequency. My hands were doing things, I said. Without me. That's muscle memory. I know what it is. I didn't say anything else for a moment. He waited the way people wait who are actually waiting and not just pausing before they talk. I don't know why I signed up, I said. I mean, I know the reason, I told myself. But I don't think that was the reason. He didn't respond to that. I appreciated it. A different kind of person would have offered something, a theory, a reassurance, a small safe bridge I could walk across without going anywhere real. Cal just held the space. And, because he didn't fill it, I did. I told him about Kevin. Not the whole thing, not the way the whole thing would take a weekend, a lot of things I don't have words for yet, but the shape of it. I told him I came back from deployment different in ways I didn't try very hard to fix, because fixing it would have required taking it out and looking at it, and I had decided, somewhere over the Atlantic on the way home, that taking it out and looking at it was optional. That you could just close the locker and keep going. That Kevin was a good man who loved a version of me that had been replaced without a public announcement. That Maddie was 11 and she had my eyes, and sometimes she looked at me with my own eyes in her face and I had to go check on something in another room. I told him I'd stopped going to the range I used to go after I got out. It was the one thing that had transferred cleanly, and when I tried to remember exactly when I'd stopped I couldn't locate it. It just got smaller and smaller until it wasn't there. The way a radio station fades out when you drive far enough. The vending machine hummed. I could feel Cal listening. Not responding, just receiving. The difference matters. I stopped feeling things on purpose, I said. Not all at once. Just incrementally. It was easier. That sentence sat in the parking lot. I had never said it before. I had known it, the way you know where a wall is in the dark, by not running into it, by routing around it consistently, but I had never put the words in that order. I stopped feeling things on purpose. Like a choice. Like maintenance. Which is, I suppose, what it was. The vending machine went through a small mechanical cycle, something internal, some cooling function, and made a different sound for about 3 seconds and then went back to humming. Cal said, after a long silence, "You going to shoot tomorrow?" I looked at the parking lot. The orange light on the asphalt. A crack in the surface that ran from one painted line to the next. "Yeah," I said. He nodded. We sat there another few minutes. Not talking. The cold was the even kind that doesn't get worse if you stay still. I could feel the concrete through my jeans and I didn't move. Then, Cal went inside. I stayed out for a while longer, watching the vending machine. I thought about Maddie. About the specific way she pronounces the word particularly, which she uses a lot because she likes the way it sounds, and she draws out the middle of it particularly, and every time she does it I feel something that takes up more space in my chest than the word deserves. I had not told Cal that. Some things you say and some things you just have, in the parking lot, in the cold, while a vending machine hums. Saying the true thing out loud doesn't fix it. But it stops being a secret. And that's different. The way the vending machine being there, lit up, on the other side of the lot, is different from the dark that was there before they plugged it in. It doesn't change the lot. It just means the lot is not entirely dark. I went inside. Set my alarm. Lay on the bedspread colored like a bruise and looked at the ceiling and let the heater crumple its paper sounds, and I did not tell myself I was fine. That was new. Chapter 3, approximately 1,180 words. Proceeding to Chapter 4 immediately. I laced my boots the same way I've laced them every day for 15 years, loop, cross, tuck, and that morning I noticed it. The motion of it. The fact that my hands had done this thing 10,000 times and I had not once been present for it. I did the second boot slower. The morning was cold and white-skied and the range was already active when I arrived, equipment being laid out, spotters running comms checks, the low purposeful noise of a group of people who were good at something and about to do it. I got my case from the equipment table. I went to lane 12. I set up. Cal was there with coffee in a paper cup he had not offered to share, which I respected. He had the weather data already pulled. He went through it without preamble. Temperature up 4 degrees from yesterday, wind shifted overnight, coming out of the northwest at 6 to 8, gusting to 12 at the 3,000 meter line based on the flag reads. Barometric pressure dropping slightly. I wrote it down. I ate a granola bar I didn't taste. I loaded the data into the ballistic calculator on my phone and ran the numbers twice. The final distance had been announced at the morning briefing, 7,285 meters. That is 4.5 miles, approximately. That is a distance at which the curvature of the Earth becomes a variable in your calculations. At that distance, a bullet is in the air for 11 plus seconds and the wind it will pass through in those 11 seconds is not the same wind that existed at the muzzle. You are shooting at a target that your round will not reach until the conditions under which it was fired have already changed. There were 6 competitors in the open civilian category. The range safety officer announced, at the start, that the 7,285 meter target was optional. Any competitor who chose to stop at the previous distance would not be penalized. It was a challenge stage. A bonus. I heard a voice somewhere behind me that I recognized as the volunteer from registration, the one with the 2 rifle cases, the one who had smiled that knowing smile, say something to the person next to him. I didn't hear the words. I heard the tone, which was the tone of let's see what happens here. Cal looked at me. I looked at lane 12. All right, I said. You get 1 shot at each challenge stage. I went through the setup the way I had been trained to do it and the way my hands had remembered they knew. Prone position, hips square, support elbow directly under the rifle, body angled slightly off bore axis to manage recoil. Stock welded to the cheek. Eye relief on the scope. Bubble level on the rail, centered. The target at 7,285 meters was not visible to the naked eye. It was a steel plate, 12 by 12 inches, and, through the scope it was small in the way that things are small when the distance between you and them is so large that looking at them feels presumptuous. Like you should apologize for trying. Cal was in my ear, low and even, building the firing solution piece by piece. Elevation data, come-ups, wind holds at 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 meters, a layered stack of corrections applied not to the target but to the space the bullet would pass through on its way there. The kind of math that requires you to commit to conditions that will be obsolete before the round arrives. You are always, at distance, shooting it where the target was. I breathed in. Let it go. The reticle settled. I breathed in again. And, in the exhale, right there in the space between full lungs and empty, that half second that exists between intention and action, I was not on a range in Nevada. I was in the kitchen in Fort Campbell at 0600, Maddie in the high chair, Kevin making eggs. The specific way the morning light came in at that angle in that apartment and made everything look, for about 11 minutes, like nothing bad had ever happened or would. I was on the hill behind my father's house, the dry leaves underfoot, him behind me with his hand barely resting on my shoulder, not guiding, just present, and the tin can on the fence post, and the particular quiet of a Kentucky morning before anything started. I was in the second bedroom in February 2015, looking at the door, understanding that I was going to close something and it was going to stay closed. All of it was there. Every version of me I had filed away and labeled not my problem and walked past on the way to find. They were all there in the exhale, taking up their proper space, being the weight they actually were. Not fixed. Not resolved. Just present. The trigger broke. The round went down range. 11 seconds is a long time when you are waiting. Then, Cal's voice, quiet, almost careful, the way you say something that matters without making it a thing, 7,285 meters. The silence after was different from other silences. I didn't move for a moment. Then, I disengaged from the scope, came up from the prone, sat back on my heels. I put the rifle down. I looked at my hands. They were mine. Completely mine, the scar on the left index finger from the barbed wire on the hill when I was 12, the callus on the right palm, the knuckles that looked more like my father's every year. I held them out in front of me like I'd just found them somewhere and was deciding whether to keep them. Cal made his notation. The range safety officer called the hit over the radio. Somewhere behind me there was the sound of a few people and, then, more people responding to something surprising. I didn't turn around. Presence is not the same as happiness. But, it is the thing that happiness requires. You can't want something better if you've convinced yourself you're not there to want it. I had been very convincingly not there for a long time. I looked at my hands. I was there. Chapter 4, approximately 1,200 words. Proceeding to Chapter 5 now. Maddie was at the kitchen table doing homework when I walked in, and she looked up and said, "You look different," and I said, "I'm tired," and she said, "No. Not tired. Different." She's 11. I put my bag down and sat across from her. She went back to her homework. Pre-algebra, a worksheet with problems that still required written work and not just a calculator, which her teacher enforces as a matter of principle that I privately agree with. Maddie works through math by writing the steps even when she knows the answer, which is a habit I don't remember teaching her and that I now think she came to on her own. I watched her write. Her handwriting has this quality I notice every time without meaning to. The loops on her lowercase letters, the G and the Y and the F, they're oversized, generous, they take up more room than they need to. My mother had the same loops. I don't know where mine went. Somewhere between army and efficiency I started printing. I watched her GS and YS and did not make a list in my head. I had driven from the range to the airport to Henderson to Kevin's house to pick her up, and the whole drive from Kevin's I kept doing the thing where you check the rearview mirror more than you need to. Not for traffic. Just to verify she was there. Backpack in her lap. Earbuds in. Looking out the window at the interstate with the mild interest of someone experiencing Tuesday. At a red light she said, without looking over, "How'd you do?" "Fine," I said. She made a sound that was not agreement or disagreement. Then, she went back to the window. At the next light she said, "Did you win?" It wasn't really that kind of competition. "But, did you hit things?" "Yeah." "Good," she said. And that was the whole conversation, and it was enough. Back at the kitchen table, she reached across to my side of the table. I'd made French fries, from frozen, oven-baked, because it was a Tuesday and Tuesdays don't require effort, and stole one off my plate without asking. No negotiation. No "can I have one?" Just the hand coming over, taking the fry, withdrawing. The pure easy ownership of it. I let her. I watched her dip it in ketchup and go back to her YS and her GS and I was there for it, not planning the next thing, not running a maintenance check on my own internal systems, not managing myself from a safe distance. I just watched her eat my French fry and do her homework. Her loops. I kept looking at her loops. 3 days later I called my father. I had not called him in 2 years, which is not a grudge or an estrangement, just a drift that neither of us had corrected. We'd texted at Christmas. He'd sent Maddie a birthday card with a 20 in it, which she had spent with great seriousness on a book. We existed in each other's peripheral vision the way people do when love is intact, but the habit of expressing it has gotten rusty. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, kiddo." He's called me kiddo since I was 6 and I stopped minding it around 40 minutes into my first deployment when I realized I missed it. "Hey, Daddy." There was the familiar background of his house, the television he keeps on too loud, the particular acoustic quality of a room that hasn't changed its furniture in 30 years. "I did a shooting competition," I said. "Long-range precision. Out in Nevada." A pause. Not a confused pause, a considering one. "How far?" he asked. Longest shot was 7,285 meters. A longer pause. Then, your granddaddy had a .30-06 he took a 300-yard buck with in 1971. Told everybody about it until the day he died. I know. He would have gotten a kick out of you. I didn't say anything. You going back? He asked. I signed up for the next one. He made a sound low, approving, the sound he made when I told him I'd made sergeant, when I told him I'd gotten the job at Forward March, the sound that means he is proud in a way he doesn't have architecture for. Good, he said. We talked for another 20 minutes about nothing particular. His truck needed a new alternator. The county had paved the road past the old Hensley farm finally. He was thinking about getting a dog. I told him to get the dog. He said he'd think about it. I went back to Forward March the following Monday. Sat at my desk. Opened the maintenance logs. The pen cup was exactly where I'd left it, 6 pens, 3 Bic, 1 Sharpie, 1 red felt tip I keep for color-coding manifests, 1 mechanical pencil that Gina borrowed and returned at some point without telling me, which I've chosen to treat as a small act of faith in the system. Dale came by at 10 a.m. He dropped a piece of paper on my desk, the sign-up sheet for the next invitational, 8 months away, and walked back to his office. I looked at it. The same desk. The same cracked mug of coffee cooling on the corner. The fluorescent overhead that flickers once every 40 minutes with the reliability of a bad habit. I picked up a pen, mine, a Bic, no teeth marks, and wrote my name. I don't know what I'm building. That is the thing I have to sit with, and I am sitting with it, which is itself new. I used to need the blueprint before I would pick up the lumber. I used to need to know the load-bearing capacity of a thing before I would let it hold any weight. Fine was a load-bearing wall I built because I could calculate exactly what it would support and exactly what it would not, and there were no surprises. The surprises are coming now. Maddie's loops. My father's voice. My own hands in front of me on a range in Nevada, belonging to me completely. I don't know what I'm building. But I'm building it awake this time. A woman in her mid-30s sits at a cluttered logistics desk in a converted warehouse office, fluorescent lit, mid-morning. She holds a chewed Bic pen loosely in one hand and stares at a single-page form on the desk in front of her. Her posture is still, face neutral, eyes focused inward rather than on the paper. Coffee mug to the left, maintenance logs open on a monitor behind her. Dust motes in the overhead light. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A wide shot of the interior of a converted warehouse nonprofit office in Henderson, Nevada. Rows of metal shelving, cardboard donation boxes, a hand-lettered sign reading Forward March on the far wall. Fluorescent strip lighting, concrete floor, a few office dividers. 2 volunteers are visible in background mid-task. The space is functional, unglamorous, worn in at the edges. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A mid-30s woman in practical work clothes, dark slacks, a plain button-down, stands at a gray industrial shelving unit reviewing a clipboard. Her expression is focused, efficient, closed. Behind her, stacked equipment crates and a volunteer moving boxes. The posture of someone who knows exactly where everything is and prefers it that way. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A heavy-set man in his early 60s, retired military bearing, sits at a cluttered desk in a small office with an open door. He is on the phone. A form sits prominently in the foreground of his desk. The room has the quality of someone who does not decorate one framed unit photo, a government issue wall calendar, stacks of operational binders. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A break room in a non-profit warehouse, laminate table, plastic chairs, a coffee maker that has seen better decades. 3 people are mid-conversation, a woman in her 40s laughing, an older veteran with a thermos, a young man leaning forward with genuine curiosity. The room is small, slightly too bright, with a vending machine in the corner. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a mid-30s woman eating a turkey sandwich alone at the end of the break room table. The others have turned to each other. She is slightly apart, chewing, eyes on the middle distance. Her expression is private without being unfriendly. The sandwich is in a plastic bag from home. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman walks down a narrow office corridor carrying a single piece of paper. Overhead fluorescent lighting. She is heading toward an open office door at the end of the hall. Her gait is deliberate. She holds the form as if it doesn't weigh anything, though she's been thinking about it for hours. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman at an office desk, alone, late afternoon. The other desks in the open plan space are empty. She is looking at nothing, the monitor is on, but her gaze is through it, not at it. A pen is held loosely in her hand. The light coming through a high clerestory window is golden and angular. Everything on her desk is organized. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Exterior, a small-town Kentucky hillside in late afternoon light, circa 2004. A teenage girl stands at a fence post, holding a .22 rifle to her shoulder. Behind her, an older man in work clothes and a cap, hand resting lightly on her shoulder, not directing, just present. 3 tin cans on the fence rail. Dry leaves underfoot, hardwood trees beginning to turn. The sky is pale and open. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a modest military base apartment kitchen, 2005. A young woman in Army PT clothes stands at a counter. She is staring at nothing. The kitchen is tidy but impersonal, standard issue cabinets, a small table with 2 chairs, 1 window with morning light. The coffee maker is on. Nothing is wrong in the room. Everything is wrong in the room. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman in her late 20s sits on the edge of a bed in a bare spare bedroom, 2015. The room has been cleared, dresser empty, closet door open and empty. She holds nothing in her hands. She is not crying. She is looking at the middle distance with the expression of someone who has just made a decision and is waiting to feel something about it. The light is gray. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Exterior, a large flat high desert shooting range in central Nevada, early morning. Mountains in the distance the color of old bone. A row of white pop-up canopies. Competitors milling about, rifle cases visible. A registration table in the foreground. The sky is clear and enormous, the blue of high altitude in April. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Wide shot of a dirt parking lot at a rural Nevada shooting range. A woman in her mid-30s stands beside a rental car, door still open, hand on the roof. She is looking at the range entrance. Her bag is at her feet. The morning is cold and bright. She has not moved yet. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a competition canopy, registration table with packets, lanyards, name badges in clear sleeves. A woman in work practical clothes stands at the edge of the table holding a competitor packet, reading a safety briefing card she clearly wrote herself. Around her, competitors in more specialized gear check equipment and socialize. She is slightly separate. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A man in his late 20s in a sun shirt and competition cap stands near an equipment table at an outdoor shooting range, holding 2 rifle cases casually at his sides. He is mid-sentence to a woman who is not quite looking at him. His expression is pleasant and lightly knowing. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a precision bolt-action rifle nested in foam in an open hard case on an equipment table. The rifle is expensive, matte finish, with a large precision scope. A woman's hands are in frame, left hand on the stock, right hand at the action, performing a safety check with practiced, automatic confidence. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A man in his late 20s, lean, neutral expression, former military bearing, stands at a marked shooting lane on an outdoor range. He holds a green data book in one hand. Behind him, the desert range stretches into the distance, target frames visible at various distances. He is waiting. He does not appear to be impatient. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Exterior shooting range, lane 12. A woman in her mid-30s sits cross-legged on a shooting mat, half-finger gloves in her lap, one on, one off. She is looking at the target line in the middle distance. The mat is clean and precisely laid out. Her data book is open beside her. The desert light is bright and flat. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman in prone position on a shooting mat, rifle shouldered, cheek welded to the stock, eye to the scope. The image is low and ground level. You see the length of her body along the mat, the curve of her ear, the stillness of her hands on the rifle. The desert horizon is visible at the edge of the frame. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot through a precision rifle scope, a small steel target plate on a distant hillside, the reticle centered. The target is far enough that the image wavers slightly in heat mirage. Everything peripheral is out of focus. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A man lying prone beside a woman on a shooting range, binoculars to his eyes, face angled downrange. The woman is behind the rifle, not moving. They are side by side on matching mats. The scene is quiet and concentrated. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman sits up from prone position on a shooting mat, rifle down, both hands in her lap. Her expression is unreadable, not triumphant, not relieved, something quieter and more interior. The man beside her is lowering his binoculars slowly. Neither is speaking. The desert range is behind them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a pair of thin shooting gloves, half-finger, laid flat on a palm. The woman's hand is still. She is clearly looking at the gloves. The light is outdoor, bright, mid-afternoon. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman stands at a staging table under a competition canopy, loading data into a phone calculator app. She is focused on the screen. Around her, other competitors are socializing in pairs. She is present in the space but not in the conversation. Her data book is open on the table beside the phone. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a Best Western motel room, night. A woman in her mid-30s sits on the bed still dressed from the day, boots, work pants, a fleece. She is eating a gas station sandwich. The bedspread is a deep garnet. The TV is on to the Weather Channel, volume low. The lamp beside the bed is the only warm light. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a television screen showing a weather map, green animated precipitation blobs moving across illustrated Midwestern states. The image is slightly grainy, the kind of TV that came with the room. Soft light from the screen spills on the edge of a motel bedspread. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Exterior of a motel, night. A woman in her mid-30s sits on the concrete curb at the edge of the parking lot. Overhead sodium lights create orange pools on the asphalt. She is not on her phone. She is looking across the lot. The night is cold and clear. The motel door behind her is closed. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A man in his late 20s sits on a curb about 4 feet away from the woman, hands in jacket pockets, facing the same direction. He is not looking at her. He is simply present. Both of them are looking across the parking lot. The sodium light makes everything the color of old photographs. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Wide shot across a motel parking lot at night. In the far corner, a lit vending machine against a cinder block wall. Pepsi signage, backlit product panels, glowing in the dark. The machine is alone on that side of the lot. Its hum is implied by the stillness around it. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of the vending machine from across the parking lot. The lit panel of choices, sodas in bright labeled columns, is the brightest thing in the frame. The light from the machine falls on the asphalt in a small pale rectangle. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Two people sitting on a motel curb at night, shot from behind. The parking lot stretches before them. Sodium lights, cracked asphalt, one car parked at an angle. The vending machine is a lit point in the background. Neither person is looking at the other. The space between them is 4 feet of cold air and understood things. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman on a motel bed at night, lying on top of the covers, still dressed, staring at the ceiling. The heater on the wall is visible, vent pointed upward. The TV is off now. The room is lit by the bathroom light coming through a partially open door. Her hands are folded on her stomach. Her eyes are open. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a motel room, very early morning. A woman sits on the edge of the bed in the half-dark, lacing her boots. The lamp is on. Her movements are careful and deliberate, she is paying attention to the task. A water glass on the nightstand, a data book on the desk. The curtain lets in a thin line of pre-dawn gray. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of hands lacing a boot, loop, cross, mid-motion, shot from above. The hands are a woman's, mid-30s, capable. The light is the warm slight glow of a single bedside lamp in a dim room. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Exterior of the high desert precision shooting range at Dawn, Nevada. The air is white cold. Competitors and volunteers move with purpose under the canopies, laying out equipment, running cables, checking wind flags on poles at intervals down the range. The mountains are distant and pale. Activity before noise. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A man in his late 20s stands at a shooting lane early morning, holding a paper cup of coffee. He is reading handwritten data from a small notebook. He does not offer the coffee. His expression is collected and matter of fact. The wind flags down the range are barely moving. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman at lane 12 of a shooting range, seated cross-legged on a mat, writing in a data book with careful precision. Her phone with a ballistic calculator app is open beside the book. The morning light is flat and bright. She runs a finger down a column of numbers. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Wide shot of a competition shooting range, final morning. 6 marked lanes, competitors in position or setting up. Range officers visible. White canopies, orange safety cones, wind flags on poles at 500-meter intervals disappearing into the desert distance. The target line is not visible from this angle, only the distance. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A volunteer in his early 30s carries 2 rifle cases toward a marked lane, his expression slightly expectant. Other competitors in the background are watching the lane in question. The volunteer's posture suggests he is delivering something he expects to be interesting. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a competition rifle being carefully lifted from its foam case and transferred to a woman's hands. Her grip is immediate and correct, no hesitation. The rifle is matte and precise. The foam of the open case is visible. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman in her mid-30s in prone position on a shooting mat, rifle shouldered, absolutely still. Shot from the side, low angle, showing the full length of her body along the mat, the stock welded to her cheek, her right eye to the scope. The horizon of the Nevada desert stretches behind her. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a bubble level mounted on a rifle rail, centered perfectly. The small yellow bubble sits exactly between the two lines. Hands visible at the edges of frame, still. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Point of view through a high magnification scope, a 12 by 12 inch steel plate at enormous distance, small in the center of the reticle. Heat mirage shimmers around it. The reticle lines are sharp and precise. Everything else is out of focus. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a woman's face in prone shooting position, right eye to the scope, left eye closed. Her expression is one of complete internal focus, not tension, but emptiness. Her breathing is not visible. The world has narrowed to one point. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman's hand on a rifle trigger, finger properly placed, still. The hand is relaxed. The knuckle over the trigger is the only point of contact. The image is close and quiet. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior memory image, a young family in a small military base kitchen, morning. A man in civilian clothes makes eggs at the stove. A toddler in a high chair watches him. Morning light through a single window. The room is plain and warm. The image has the quality of something seen through glass, present and slightly unreachable. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Memory image, a teenage girl on a hillside behind a rural house, .22 rifle at her shoulder, an older man behind her. The light is late afternoon Kentucky gold. The scene is still and clear. The tin can on the fence post is untouched, this is the moment before. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Memory image, a woman standing in a bare spare bedroom doorway, 2015. She is looking into a room that has been emptied. Her hand is on the door frame. The hallway behind her is normal and lit. She is about to close a door. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman in prone position on a shooting mat, rifle still, in the moment of firing, the stillness immediately before the trigger breaks. Her body is completely quiet. The Nevada desert stretches behind her. The sky is enormous and indifferent. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Wide exterior shot of a shooting range, a small puff of dust rises at the base of a target frame on a distant hillside. The target itself is too small to see from this distance. In the foreground, a man with binoculars lowers them very slowly. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A man in his late 20s kneels beside a woman who is sitting up from the prone position on a shooting mat. He is not touching her. He is speaking quietly. His expression is carefully even, he is giving her the fact and nothing extra. The woman is looking at her own hands. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a woman's hands held out in front of her, palms up, fingers extended. She is studying them. The scar on the left index finger. The callus on the right palm. The light is outdoor, bright. Her expression is not visible, only the hands and the act of looking at them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A group of 8 to 10 people at a shooting range canopy beginning to respond to something, turning, a few stepping forward, expressions of surprise. One man is clapping slowly. In the foreground, a woman with her back to them is still sitting on the mat, not turned, looking at her hands. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman walks through a parking lot toward a rental car, bag over shoulder, range in background. It is late afternoon, the light warm and low. She is not rushing. Her posture is different from her arrival, not looser exactly, but more present, like she is actually occupying the space she is moving through. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a small SUV on an interstate, dusk. A woman is driving. In the back seat, a girl of about 11 has a backpack in her lap and earbuds in, looking out the window with mild interest. The freeway is evening lit. Neither is talking. The quiet between them is comfortable and slightly imperfect. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A girl of about 11 in a back seat looks out the window at passing interstate scenery, earbuds in, expression neutral curious. She is not performing anything. She just is. The light is the golden gray of highway evening. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a kitchen at night modest, functional, a woman in her mid-30s and an 11-year-old girl at a table. The girl is doing homework. The woman is watching her. A plate of oven fries between them. The overhead light is on. The refrigerator hums. This is ordinary life, and the woman is here for it. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a girl's homework paper, pre-algebra, handwritten, pencil on lined paper. The letters in the work have oversized loops on the descending letters G, Y, F. A pencil rests beside the paper. The paper is half done. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a girl's hand reaching across a kitchen table and taking a single French fry off a plate. The motion is casual and entirely without guilt, the easy ownership of a child taking from a parent. The plate and the girl's arm are in focus. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman watching a girl eat a stolen French fry and dip it in ketchup, returning to her homework. The woman's expression is quiet and present. Not smiling exactly. Just there. The kitchen light is warm. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman in her mid-30s stands in a kitchen holding a phone to her ear, the other hand resting flat on the counter. It is daytime, afternoon light through the window. Her posture is slightly open, less guarded than usual. She is listening. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Interior of a rural Kentucky living room, viewed through the phone call, an older man in his 60s sits in a recliner, television on in the background at moderate volume. He is holding a cordless phone, leaning slightly forward with an expression of quiet pride. The room has not changed its furniture in decades. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman at a logistics desk in the Forward March warehouse office, Monday morning. She is writing her name on a sign-up sheet. The same desk, same cracked mug, same fluorescent overhead light. Everything is the same. She is not the same. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Close shot of a hand writing a name in the first blank line of a sign-up sheet. The pen is a clean Bic, no teeth marks. The handwriting is neat and certain. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. A woman at her desk in the non-profit office, alone, end of day. The overhead light flickers once, briefly. She does not react to it. She is looking at the sign sheet, hands flat on the desk on either side of it. The expression on her face is the expression of someone who is building something they do not yet have a blueprint for, and has decided to start anyway. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting. Wide exterior shot of the Nevada high desert at dusk, the shooting range empty now, the canopies taken down. The target frames are still in place at their various distances, too far to see clearly, just marks on the pale hillside. The sky is layered in low amber and blue. The space is enormous and quiet. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, contemporary American setting.